All right. Good morning, everybody. Oh, you guys are responsive. Great. Yay, that makes me so happy. I'm used to saying good morning and people just kind of stare, so. Not here. All right. So I just had the introduction. Again, my name is Shaundra Daly. I go by Shani. And I'm an assistant professor in the School of Computing at Clemson in the Human-Centered Computing Division. And I'll try to explain what that means a little later. But I wanted to start off by saying I sent this abstract for this talk to your dean probably back in May or June of last year. And so I had this idea about what I wanted to describe and talk about to you all. But I literally woke up yesterday morning and I didn't like anything about it. The ladies that I had dinner with last night kind of reaffirmed for me that the new direction I wanted to take today would hopefully be a good direction for at least some of you. So I hope you'll give me some leeway. If not, don't invite me back. But I'm going to go ahead, since I'm up here and I have the mic, I'm going to go ahead and say what I decided to say. All right. So my new topic is faithful though scientific, okay? I got a lot of questions before coming, and I'm going to try to answer some of those, and hopefully this will make sense. So for this talk, I want to take you through my journey to the present. What I'll try to do throughout is to point out distinct instances where I came to decision points, where I had to move or not to move, or where my procrastination just meant that a decision was made for me. But for each point, I want to talk about how I weighed things, but ultimately how I can really look back on each of those moments and see how my steps have been guided throughout, okay? So who am I? All right, so let me say who I am now. They said a little bit a second ago, but let me say who I am now, and then I'm going to talk about how I got there. All right, so there's a lot of pictures up there, but here's the current snapshot. So I'm a daughter, of course. I'm a friend. I'm a professor at Clemson University. I'm an avid sports fan. You do not grow up in the South without being a sports fan, but I'm possibly an even bigger fan of pretty cars. All right. I'm the mother of two little girls who are almost 5 and almost 8. I've heard very, very, very few songs that I wouldn't dance to. There's not a sci-fi film that I will not sit through. And although I mostly grew up in Alabama, I'm actually now living in my 7th state, and I think there's 8 or 9 cities within those states. So I've moved around a lot. So that's me. That's now, I probably left out some hats that I wear, but that's who I am right now. So what was my journey? So let's start. I won't talk through my whole childhood. I'll spare you the couch moment. But let's suffice it to say that pretty much growing up, I was always a fish out of water in most of my circles. So at least as far as stereotypes are concerned. So I was modeling at one point in time, but I hated fashion. There was nothing that I liked about fashion, but somebody said that I should do it and I could make a little money, so it sounded okay. I also preferred jeans and a t-shirt. I was the nerd who was in the books and enjoyed being in the books, but I also enjoyed going out, having a good time, and of course dancing. I was the cheerleader who, while stretching, would do work at times, right? And I was the severe introvert who, if forced enough, of course, if I'm going to cheer and dance, could pretend to be an extrovert. So I'm pretending for you guys right now, when necessary. But my first decision point that I wanted to take you all through was high school. All right. So I was convinced after a crime scene investigation project that my calling was to be in the FBI. I was good at puzzles. I loved to solve them. I loved to dig for evidence. I thought this was just the coolest thing ever, not to mention the gun, the badge thing. That was really working for me, all right? So at the time, I hadn't really been exposed to a lot of career options except doctor or lawyer. So given the fact that I was good at math and science, the FBI seemed like a good choice. And I wasn't really sure how to get into the FBI or what that really meant, or if I could even tell anybody I wanted to be in the FBI. But I had a friend, I know, right? The agency that no one speaks of. So I had a friend whose dad was formerly in the CIA, and he advised me that I could either be a criminology major or an engineering major, right? And so I began my search for schools, right? So my requirements for a school, don't judge, were that they have, of course, a good criminology or engineering program, right? That they had a competitive dance program, okay? I took this stuff really, really seriously. And that there was warm weather. So you'll see the map. I don't know if anyone's... So you see my map. If anyone's familiar with the Mason-Dixon line, that was my map. Like, I was not going above the Mason-Dixon line, okay? And I was doing good to go above Tennessee, okay? But those were my requirements, right? So how do I evaluate, what I want to do, right? So like many other logical thinkers, I used pro and con list, right? I also used weighing metrics, and I had these rows with all my requirements, and I was ranking things high to low and trying to figure out and put all the puzzle in my very FBI type of way, trying to figure things out, trying to do this, but there's downsides to the approach, okay? I love this picture. It says, the pros and cons of making a pros and cons list, right? And what it basically says is the biggest con is coming up with a way to rationalize whatever the decision you want to be anyways, right? And that's true, right? You can totally do that, either if you're using pro and con, or if even you're using, the metrics. So if you think about measurement tools, right, your results are only as good as your instrument in the first place. Agreed? All right. So you're choosing what to put on the list, and what you're choosing to put on the list is laden with your biases, with your limitations, and your ability to see the big picture, right? So no matter what, there are things going on, right, in the world that you're not going to know about, that you're not going to be able to put on this list. So you as believers, you know that there are always things at work that you can't see and that you can't account for, right? And so if anyone's like me, I tend to rely heavily on logic to reason through things. But logic is the science of relations between propositions, but it can never tell you if those propositions are true, okay? So it's something that you have to pay attention to. So before you get the wrong idea, I'm not advocating that we just take logic, we throw it out the window, and, we just, blindly ride off into the sunset, okay? But I just want to make sure that I'm not presenting, pros and con lists and weights and all of my things that I do as the end-all be-all. So, but I digress. Back to my story. So I was really young in my faith at the time, okay? So my decision of a school to choose was just based on these metrics, right? So I chose Florida State. As I mentioned, I was on the dance team, which meant I did basketball halftimes, football games. Sometimes we performed in the circus for whatever reason. Yeah. And I actually started off as a civil engineer, right? There was one other person from my high school that was also going to Florida State. He was going to be a civil engineer. I didn't actually know what engineering was, and so I decided to go into civil engineering as well. But thank God there was a program that I was a part of that actually required me to go and interview a professor in my field. So I went into the office, I sat down, and I said, so, I'm part of this program. I'm supposed to find out what civil engineering is all about. You're a civil engineer, so maybe you can tell me what this is. So what do? He said, I deal with big things that don't move. I said, thank you for your time, and I left. So, true story. He's a very nice guy. He kind of understood. And so, I figured that I needed to figure out what this engineering thing was before I got stuck in something that I didn't want to do. And so I actually researched the different engineerings, and ultimately, because I liked cars and radios and CDs and all that kind of stuff, I chose electrical engineering, all right? And that ended up being a good choice. I ended up getting my degree in electrical engineering. But something happened along the way, okay? I thought I was getting my badge, and I thought I was getting my gun. That's where I thought I was headed. But I started tutoring children. I started developing IT curriculum for underserved communities. I was annoyed, very, very annoyed, because this never happens with you guys. But I was annoyed with my professors because I just felt like they just didn't really care that they showed up, they wrote some stuff on the board, and then they left. And I was like, I can totally do a better job. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a professor. That's what I should do, all right? And so at that time, Florida A&M, whose College of Engineering is joint with FSU, had a program where you could go from a bachelor's to a PhD in 3 to 4 years, right? Sounds great, doesn't it? Yes. Yeah, for those of you who have gone through the PhD, that sounded great. And I was like, this is it. This is the program for me. I'm going to do that, wrap it up, do my thing, figure it out, okay? So I switched to FAMU. And I was immediately able to jump into research, again, because of this program that I was involved in as an undergraduate. And the problem is I didn't really like it. I did not like the research in my department for electrical engineering. I mean, I tried electrostatics. I was modeling Martian space dust. I'm going to pause. All right. I tried solar energy, which I worked on a solar car, and I'm thinking, hey, it's in a car. Surely this is something that I can get excited about. Not true. And then I found biomimetics, and it was like, well, I really want to do something with people, and biomimetics is based on the principles of people and how these things work, and ants and stuff like that, and that could be exciting. No. Okay, I could not find anything that I could get passionate about, that I was excited about. Nothing felt worth pursuing, right? So then I came out with this idea, right? I was at another decision point, right? Now, mind you, I'm a year into the program, meaning, my coursework, because of what's carrying over, and it's a special program, I'm almost done. I'm moving into my qualifying exams, right? I'm ready to get a topic and get out of there. I was doing well in classes. I mean, I as far as my my poor grades in undergrad were geography and accounting, and I did good not to fail those things. Go figure. But I did fine in engineering, okay, and I was doing fine in grad school. So I was like, okay, maybe if I use my engineering skills and apply them to education, and I was like, this is the greatest idea ever. So I went to my department chair and I said, let me tell you, I got this idea, right? I was like, I'm gonna be an engineer and I'm gonna apply it to education. He was like, we're not gonna give you an engineering degree to do education. I was like, no. You don't get it. I'm still gonna do engineering, but it's gonna be in the context of education. He was like, no. So bubble burst. And I said, but okay, all hope is not lost. All hope is not lost. I can show him, I can prove to him that I can do this, right? So I started researching universities. I was looking at Carnegie Mellon, at Vanderbilt, at MIT, at Stanford. I was like, these are respected universities, and if I can show that these people are doing what I'm saying, then surely, he'll go for it. But in the midst of that, I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I spending all my time trying to prove my idea is a good one? Why don't I just go to these other universities, right? So that's what I did. So I applied to those programs, but again, decision point, there were pros and cons, about that, all right? So let's start with Carnegie Mellon. Well, I was rejected. That kind of doesn't help. Stanford did not reject me, but they said, okay, what you can do is you can come get a master's that you pay for. Mind you, if I was going to leave FAMU, I had to finish with a master's. So I was going to have to get another master's, right, that I had to pay for at Stanford. Yeah, okay. And then if I got into the PhD program, then they would pay for that. Okay, so, you know. All right, so MIT was similar. But can anyone guess what my major problem was with MIT? It was above the Mason-Dixon line. My goodness, not okay. Not okay. This may seem small because I'm in Minnesota, but I am a girl from the South, okay? We see snow and we shut down for 3 weeks, okay? I had a T-shirt from 1996 that said, "I survived the blizzard." It was like 2 feet of snow, right? Okay, we don't. MIT also wanted me to do another master's before going into the PhD, but they would fund it throughout, okay? Guaranteed funding. And then Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was good. Vanderbilt was below that line. They weren't gonna make me do another master's. They were gonna let me go straight to the PhD. Yeah, okay? One big problem. I got there, and somebody says, "Did you know that your advisor is leaving?" And I was like, what? Why did he invite me here if he was planning on leaving? And they were like, well, maybe because you're a minority woman and they're trying to get more minority people into the program, maybe they thought it was a good idea to get you here. I was like, not cool. Not cool. You don't bring me here and then leave. So Vanderbilt for me was not an option. All right. So, I had my list. Okay. I'm weighing these decisions. And I was like, you know what? These are closed doors. Having me move above the Mason-Dixon line is clearly a closed door. Who does that? Okay? Oh, that's terrible. I kid you not. So a large part of me was like, okay, I'm just gonna stay where I am. I'm gonna stay put. I'm gonna suffer through a PhD, but I'll have a PhD. I'm gonna stay here. I had a significant other that was close. Look at all these reasons for me to stay, right? And it's illogical when I have 2 years, maybe 3 left, to add at least 3, maybe 4 onto that. Why would I want to do that, right? Luckily, God placed people around me who were like, you got accepted to MIT, what are you thinking? And I was like, yeah, it's cool and all. I hear it's a good school, but look, I'm fine. I have things here for me that are fine. I'm comfortable. I got this nice apartment. Everything's paid for. I'm good. And they're like, no, this is an opportunity for you. You're supposed to be there. You need to go. And they literally kicked me to go. I did not want to go, y'all. I did not. I kid you not. So thought, prayer, family, and catch this, my favorite, advice from the person who became my advisor, that I shouldn't go to Stanford because their weather is so nice I would never get work done. I kid you not. I kid you not. That was like, why would you go there? You'll never do anything. So I chose MIT. All right. And again, I was mostly excited about it, but I wasn't really sure it was the right decision. But sometimes when you do things that are outside your comfort zone, God sends these nice little things that help you to know you made the right decision. And I had chosen Matthew 6:33 as my guiding verse for the year. I try to pick a new one every year that keeps me grounded and reminds me. And seek ye first, right? We're familiar. And when I arrived, my advisor, who was also a believer, had set up an email account for me. And she said, hey, Shani, here's your new email account, welcome, so on and so forth. I set up a temporary password for you. Here it is. Guess what it was? Matthew 6:33. I was like, I really needed that. I needed that confirmation. I needed that. And it just came right at the right time. So I knew I was in the right place. All right. Now, I wasn't in the typical electrical engineering program at MIT. I was in a place called the Media Lab. Anybody heard of the Media Lab? Okay, so I'm going to describe it because I only see like one hand. Has anybody heard of Guitar Hero or Rock Band? I see more hands. All right, good. All right, so the guys who are the founders of that company came out of the Media Lab, and they actually were in a group that combines computing with music, okay? Anybody seen Lego Mindstorm? So where you have this yellow brick, and you put the Legos on it, and you program it, and it makes cars and things move and stuff like that. A few more, okay. Well, the people who invented that were also out of the lab in a different group who combined what? Education and computing engineering. Sounds familiar, right? All right. So the Media Lab it's a cool place. It's actually out of the Department of Architecture. Just to give you a sense of perspective, when it was created, they wanted to call it the major that is no other. When that was rejected, they said, okay. How about the undisciplined? So after being rejected on those two titles, they came up with media arts and sciences, right? Which means nothing. It means absolutely nothing, okay? So catch this. My family knows that I've already been in school for 6 years at this point, right? And I'm like, hey, well, I'm going to go to MIT. And they're like, oh, okay, MIT, but, I thought you were about to finish. I'm like, yeah, it might take like 6 more years. But, it's funded, so don't worry about it. They're like, oh, cool, okay, cool. So you're still engineering then? That's awesome. I'm like, no, actually, it's media arts and sciences. They're like, you're a journalist now? And I'm like, no, I'm not a journalist. I'm still an engineer. So anyways, let me move forward. So when I was arrived, I was joined between two groups. Okay, one was called affective computing, and the other was called the future of learning. All right, so let me ask you, and please just call out things. What are the ways that you, looking at another person, can tell their emotion? Facial expressions. Body language. What they say. What was that? Tone of voice, how they say it. So not what they say, but how they say it, right? It makes a difference, right? What else? All right, I'll give you those. So affective computing is sensors and technologies that sense and respond to emotion, and then we apply those in different contexts. All right, and so I put some pictures. You guys said facial expression, tone of voice. The bottom left picture is a skin conductance sensor. All right, so anytime you experience an emotion, you sweat. It might be a little bit, but does anybody know anybody who knows somebody that when they get nervous about speaking, they might sweat a little bit? I know it's none of you. And it's somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. But sometimes that happens, right? So it doesn't have to be that type of sweating where it's like, you're gushing. It can be just a little bit, and these sensors can actually pick up on that, okay? And I'll show you some more of that in just a second. The pictures on the right-hand side are from the Future of Learning group. And basically, the whole idea was to develop new technologies that enable new ways of thinking and learning and designing. So we created tools to think with, is what we called it, and brought them to real-world settings. And again, I'll talk more about it in just a second. So just get a sense. I'm already stepping outside of electrical engineering, and now I have these two hats, right? Affective computing, future of learning. And they were like, you should find some synergy between the groups, okay? Yeah. So let me explain a little bit more about affective computing. This is something I did. It was a lot of fun. It was a Super Bowl. I did not go. I watched it on TV. But I had a bunch of people that were wearing these skin conductance sensors, right? And so what you see about the skin conductance graph is that there's these peaks and valleys, okay? Peaks correspond to more emotion, more sweat, right? And valleys is less. Now, what you cannot tell from this graph is valence, okay? So a positive emotion looks just like a negative emotion, all right? So I always forget, this was the Patriots and the Jets or Giants. Giants? Yeah, like I said, Giants. Patriots and the Giants, all right? And Giants fan, this is the Patriots fan, but a Giants fan graph would probably look exactly the same. Why? Because what is a Giants fan going to do when a Patriot gets a touchdown? Yeah, they're probably going to experience some type of negative emotion, okay? All right, so I marked on there, there's a Patriots touchdown, there's a first down, something's overthrown, there's a Hail Mary, there's all this stuff. But there's one thing that I marked. It has an arrow, but it's not marked. And I always get a kick out of showing this. So this is what this was. Notice the peak is almost as high as the actual game. And I'm going to show this video. Chris, I did it right. Uh-oh. I'm going to pretend to show a video. This is where the video shows. All right. Does anybody remember this? So I showed that one time in a group full of people, and nobody laughed. And I was like, what is wrong with you people? Are you awake? Okay. I'm gathered, I'm composed. All right. So some of you said that you remember that video, right? Mind you, this Super Bowl was what, almost 10 years ago now, right? But the cool thing about skin conductance is it relates to attention and memory. So you ever wonder why really negative things in your life kind of keep popping back up? And it's like you can't get them out of your memory. There's actually, this mind-body connection, which is really nice and useful in a lot of cases, right? Because what negative emotion does is it draws your attention to something that's wrong. But the challenge that we have is that we get stuck in that negative emotion a lot of times. And so this was a really cool thing, and I actually use this measure a lot in the research that I do now. And it's fascinating to me to see that and to see how science just really is explaining these things. Now, what's cool is, we all know that a lot of times in order to get ourselves out of those negative states, what's a good thing to do? Pray. Praise. Gratitude. All right? So there's actually research now connecting happiness with gratitude and looking at how, you can take a measure of baseline happiness, ask somebody to express gratitude and appreciation, and then take another measure of happiness, and you actually see increases, which is very nice. All right? So I took this, and one of my first projects that I did was called the Interactive Journal. And the idea was to use this tool as a way to reflect. So I used skin conductance, and I also used heart rate variability, and I had people go type into a diary. And after they typed into the diary, you would pull up these graphs, right? So the top left is supposed to be stress, where it's kind of like a heat map. More red is more stressful. The bottom one is, again, skin conductance that you just saw. But what you could do in the graph is click around and see what you were talking about at that time and see how it's affecting you physiologically, okay? All right. There's lots of other projects, and if we have time afterwards, I'm happy to answer questions about that kind of work. And I'll talk about some other stuff in a second. All right, so future of learning. All right, so constructionism is about technology as a tool to think with, which I mentioned. It has the tenets of self-reflection, personally meaningful development, and powerful ideas, right? So the idea that you are constructing things that mean something to you. And that's something that's really nice. And for me, when I would look at students creating in this space, I was always seeing how their different talents would come out and how when they got to work on something meaningful, personally meaningful, they were really excited about it. All right, so what we did, excuse me, is we went all over the world. We went to Egypt, we went to Brazil, we went to Mexico, we went to places in the States, and we conducted these workshops, all right? And basically we would say, what is the city that you want, all right? And so the kids would identify an issue in their community, and then they build these models in order to say this is how they would solve it, but the models would involve computation. So they would be programming something, right? So one group of students identified that the buses were overcrowded in the city. And so because their parents would be coming home from work, the buses would be overcrowded or they wouldn't get on and it would be upsetting and they would come home and that would lead to some kind of domestic violence situation, right? So they used an old keyboard that could, and they sensed when all the buttons were pressed, meaning the bus was full. And the bus would come on with a sign, and it would say, sorry, we're full, wait on the next one for however long, and then, it would keep going so that it wouldn't be overcrowded, right? And it may have been a naive solution, but it was their idea to solve something, and they were using computation in a different way to think about how to do it. So again, as a part of the Future of Learning group, I had the opportunity to travel all over the world, okay? I put up some of the places that I went because of that. We were either conducting workshops or making presentations, and I would have never, ever, ever experienced these things had I stayed where I was. Never would have experienced these things. I also would not have been able to see, this kind of biblical idea of one body in many parts, that I saw played out over and over again in these workshops played out. I would have never known it had I stayed where I was, had I gone with my logic, right, that said clearly these are closed doors, and had I stayed, all right? So I found ways in my PhD to combine affective computing and the future of learning by developing technology and curriculum to use as tools to support the development of emotional self-awareness and empathy. I defended my PhD in July 2010, and then in February 2011, the chair of Human-Centered Computing Division, where I am now, called me to give a talk. I said, okay, I can give a talk. Long story short, this talk was actually a job talk, okay? And so I actually spoke in May, and I was given an offer while I was there. And the conversation was, how do we get you here? Not, tell me why you should be here, right? So that opportunity was really, really set up. But again, I was at a decision point, all right? So I left out a few details, all right? So let me fill you in on all that was going on while I was in graduate school beyond that, all right? So I started the PhD in 2005 after I completed that second master's. I had a child in 2006, okay? I started a company in 2007. I moved to Alabama while still finishing my studies in 2008, where then I found out I was pregnant with a second child, and I had her in 2009, right? So fast forward to 2011, and I'm juggling, right? I'm trying to keep up with all these things, and when Clemson gave this offer, I was like, ooh, I don't know, I'm fine where I am. I got my own company. I'm on my own time. I'm doing my thing. These things are great, so on and so forth. And so I did what I normally do. All right, I do not escape this. This is me. This is me. I went to my pros and cons list, right? But this one was hard, right? Most notably because I had always heard horror stories of academia, right? And women in academia, and how it's just not conducive to having a family, right? But after weighing it, after praying about it, I made a decision. And I said, okay, I'm going to go in academia, but no matter what, my time with my kids will not be sacrificed, okay? If that means that I don't get tenure, that I'm not able to literally keep my job, because after you run out of 5 years, if you don't get tenure, you get to go, okay? But if that means that I don't get tenure, then I just don't get tenure, right? So I say no to a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of them. If there's a conference, I'll send a student. I don't do those things because I don't get that time back with my girls, all right? So I have this schedule, okay? You can't see the full thing, but this is what guides my day-to-day, right? This stops at 3 p.m., but if it kept going, 3 to 7, 3 to 8, whenever my kids go to bed, that's their time, right? And then I usually work from 8 to 11, right? So if it goes right, which it rarely goes right, okay? My kids, last winter, the pediatricians said was the worst winter they had seen in years, okay? My kids were out for 25 days. 25 days, what am I gonna do? Okay, I can only bribe them with so much TV. Okay, they get bored. All right, but it rarely works out, but I'm making these choices, and I'm constantly having to remind myself to rest, and that if I'm actually going to be balanced, that I have to do things and have the faith that things will work out. And remind myself that working out does not necessarily mean that I get tenure. And that is hard. All right? But I'm happy. I'm doing what I love to do. I'm the director of the Morph Lab. We say that we design and research interactive technologies to support shifts in perspectives, attitudes, emotional dispositions, and cognitive habits. If you remember what Deborah said earlier, it was interpersonal technology labs. And that's where I was last year, but I've shifted, hence the name Morph. All right. I have a great team. They do fantastic work. I'm doing some exciting projects. This one was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We're using that measure of skin conductance to create visualizations for teachers to understand how students are engaging in the classroom. I have a dance project, and I don't know that, I'm done at 11, I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a dance project where we're trying to teach computer programming through dance, so the students actually get to dance in the physical world, and then they create a three-dimensional partner to dance with them. I have a project where we're doing virtual peer mentoring, and it's all about accountability, and so it's a goal system where students can go in and put in what they're doing and what they've accomplished and what they haven't accomplished, and actually come together with other people and say, here's what I've done and here's what I haven't done, and have those people support them and challenge them and encourage them. All right? So if you missed the rest, all right, I just want to sum up what I'm hoping, might come out of this. All right? So follow your passion. It's there for a reason. Right? The things that you enjoy, and I asked the women last night, what are they passionate about? You enjoy them for a reason. All right? Sometimes the most illogical decision is the best direction for you. All right? Faith, and this is Hebrews 11, is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things that we cannot see. Sometimes closed doors are there to build strength, meaning you need to get through it, right? Other times, they're so you'll move in a different direction. All right? You can do it all, just maybe not at the same time. Okay? Ecclesiastes talks about seasons, right, of doing things. Write your vision, all right? Every year I write a new vision, and it's a 5-year vision, and I always put subject to changes based on the auspices of the Holy Ghost, right? But I write it, all right? And it always changes. Be you. All right, you are you. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that. Oops, did it go? There we go. All right. So I often get asked what it's like to be a minority and a woman in engineering. And to be honest, I actually kind of chuckle when I get those questions, because I had a mother who had this funny idea that I didn't need to know that there's actually a lack of women and minorities in these places. And so when I was younger, she would just explain things away, and I was young enough not to, get it. And she'd be like, oh, they called you this? Oh, yeah, that just means something else, right? So I didn't know. I didn't know that there were these limitations, and it wasn't until I was, applying to college and stuff, and people were like, what do you mean you're choosing engineering? I was like, why wouldn't I choose engineering? Well, how does it feel to be the only? Oh, I am the only. I don't know. So it was clever, but I realize now that, it was good for me, right? Because I didn't know that I supposedly had these limitations. But I know that my perspective and my experiences and everything that is me, okay, contributes to how I'm able to make a difference and how I'm able to do the work that I do, all right? I don't feel the need to be anybody but me, okay, because that's me. So I put this picture of Mr. Potato Head up, all right, because it makes me think of all the different parts of the body and what happens when different parts of the body try to be something else, right? it doesn't work out so well, right? It's jumbled. You don't walk. You might not eat. You get where I'm going. Okay? All right. So throughout my journey, at each decision, when it's easy to get caught in my anxieties, in my fears, in my logic, pause, okay? I have to remind myself that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, okay? To make sure that I am playing my part in the body and making sure that I'm making a difference in the world. Okay? And so what I hope you take from today is the confidence and the boldness to do the same, knowing all along that whatever direction you choose, his strength is on your side. Thank you.